All right, everybody, welcome back. Here we're going to talk about probate, which is a great hidden market for finding deals. A lot of people don't know a lot about it, and a lot of investors don't work it because they have some preconceived notions around the fact that we're ambulance chasers or hearse chasers, when in reality that's not at all what we do. We actually wait until the family has decided that they're ready to go ahead and get rid of the estate or settle the estate, and at that point that's when we'll step in and go ahead and start to market or provide our services that we are interested in buying properties. So we actually really do provide a service in that, when somebody passes away, the family can be quite overwhelmed with everything that goes with that, and they have a house oftentimes that's cosmetically distressed and full of stuff. So what we can do is we can actually buy that property in its as-is condition, and we'll be willing to buy it with any unwanted personal belongings. This is going to make it a real benefit for those people who don't want to deal with having to fix up that property or having to clean it out. I'm not talking about buying the pretty houses that are in pretty neighborhoods that should be listed on the MLS. I'm talking about the ones that are full of stuff. A lot of times we deal with hoarders and people who really have let their house go into disrepair. So in this module, what you're going to do is we're going to be aiming to help you understand the process and purpose of probate, as well as the basics of finding property in the probate process. So this is another one of those sources for targeted leads that goes along with the other ones that were discussed in the targeted leads module, but this is all specific to probate. Now, the probate laws from state to state will vary, but overall the process is the same. And there's some real opportunities to find real estate in probate, because what we find is that a lot of people, as they're aging, they're told that their home is their greatest asset. Now, of course, we know that that home is actually probably more of a liability, but what they do is they pay off that home, and then when they pass away, there's equity in that home left for their children. Now, what has to happen is they actually have to go ahead and go through the probate process in order to distribute any assets to the heirs, but also pay off any creditors that need to be paid. So in your area, it may not be called the probate courts, it may actually be called the surrogate courts or the register of wills. One of the things I want to show you is that online, if you go to, there's a really great website called, let's see here, it's called courtreference.com. So if you go to courtreference.com, it'll actually give you all of the different courts systems across the United States. Now, if you go into your particular area and you choose, they're going to tell you all about the different types of courts. So in Ohio here, we have the Court of Common Pleas, we have the county courts, the municipal courts, the mayor's courts, Court of Claims, the Ohio Court Notes. We have all kinds of different sections here that tell us about our court system in the different areas. Now, where to find court cases in Ohio. This is the part I love about courtreference.com, is it has this great grid at the bottom after you choose your state, and it tells you for different types of cases where you might locate the information on those cases and where they're handled. So what we'll find is in probate, we can find that, okay, in probate in Ohio, it's handled at the Court of Common Pleas. So it can tell me where to go. What court system am I looking for in order to be able to find out information on probate? Now, same thing, if I go into, let's say, New Jersey, what I learn as I learn about the different areas in New Jersey, and I scroll down to my different types of cases, I learned that the probates are actually handled primarily at the surrogates courts. The wills and the estates are handled at the surrogates courts. So this is actually really helpful for you to go to this courtreference.com and be able to just learn a little bit about your court system. It'll also help you in foreclosure as well to figure out where those foreclosure cases might be handled as well. So that's one of the places where you might go look for some of that information about your particular local court system and how it might be handled. Now, the probate courts actually handle a lot of different types of cases. They handle estate cases, which is when somebody passes away, but they'll also handle marriage license, guardianships, conservatorships, and a lot of other types of things as well. We're specifically interested in the estates. Now keep in mind, it's also possible to find information on guardianships and conservatorships as well, and be able to find property in those as well, but we're going to specifically focus on estates. Once you understand the process, you'll be able to pull leads from other places within the probate court as well. So just keep that in mind. Now, when a person passes, the estate goes through a validation process with the county courts. And it's typically handled at the county level. When you go through your probate court, it is typically handled at the county level. And the purpose of probate really is to satisfy any debts against the estate. After those debts are satisfied, then any remaining assets are actually distributed to the heirs. Now, estates of lesser value, those in trusts, and those where all the assets are transferring to a surviving spouse are typically not required to go through the probate process. This is why your estate planning is so important, that you put your properties and your whole estate really in trust, because it can help you avoid the long process that people go through with probate. So a lot of times people think, well, if I have a will, I don't have to go through probate. And that's actually not true. Whether you have a will or you don't have a will, you have to go through probate unless you don't have anything, all your assets are going to your surviving spouse, or you have a trust. So the key person that we need to know in probate is that personal representative. Now, this is either assigned by the will or the courts. It just depends. If the will assigns who the personal representative is, then of course that's going to be the person that we're looking for. If there is no person in the will, named in the will, there is no will, or that person doesn't want the job, then the courts will assign it according to county and state law. Now, the responsibility of the PR is to actually oversee all the assets and liabilities of the estate. They actually have to give an asset sheet that shows everything that the estate owns. Now, depending on where you live, it may be called something different. We use PR as a catch-all for figuring out these, or for referring to the person that's in charge of the estate. Now, if it's an executor or an executrix, this is somebody who's been assigned by the will. An administrator is typically somebody who's been assigned by the courts, but you may also see it referred to as a fiduciary. So we use personal representative, or PR, as a way to describe all of these. Now, it also might be an attorney. So it's not just a family member, it could actually be an attorney who's actually overseeing the case file as well. So what you're going to do in order to be able to find deals. Now, the purpose of us teaching you how to go about finding property in probate is not to learn probate process. If you want to learn the probate process, hire a probate attorney and have them tell you all about it. Our purpose is to find properties located in probate. So you're going to have to go to the courthouse in order to establish how these probates are filed. But before you go to the courthouse, what you want to do is locate, where do I need to go to pull these files? So where are my case files being held? Because you're going to need to go and you need to pull those case files. Now, when somebody passes away and they go through probate, what they actually have to do is they have to publicly print a notice that tells everybody that this case has been opened. And what it does is it gives people the ability, or allows people to know that they can stake a claim in the estate. So it's publicly filed in the newspaper, says, hey, notice to creditors, or it might be called a notice to probate estate. Or notice to administer estate. It just depends on what your state's calling it. But that's the ability for anybody who has any claims to go ahead and mail those claims. Now, this is how most investors will actually work probate, is they'll actually go through the newspaper, the legal newspaper, and they'll find these probates, and they'll go ahead and mail the mailing to the claims address. What we want to do is we want to get our hands on one of these public notices, because it actually helps us figure out how case file numbers are assigned. And that's really going to be the key to working our probate process, is looking at How are these case files assigned? It's our gate key to get in to look at a file. And this is how we're going to start to build rapport. So what you're going to do is you're going to get this publication, and I want you to circle one of the probate cases, because you're going to go into the probate court eventually and you're going to have them pull that case file so that you can get familiar with what's actually in a probate case. So you're looking for something like this, something that says Notice to Creditors, case number 2013-123. Notice is hereby given that original letters of testamentary were issued to or for the estate of Roy G. Biv, deceased on June 17, 2013. In the case number 2013-123, pending in the probate court of Anywhere County, USA, to Laura A. Mitchell, the executrix. Claims mailed to 234 Double Street, Somewhere, USA, 00234. All persons having claims against this estate are required to present them within the time and in the manner prescribed by the law. And it has the attorney's address. Speaking of which, those attorneys are going to be valuable people for you to network with as well. And we're going to talk about that in the advertising section. That's part of what we put together in a marketing plan, is the whole picture of how we're going to build and grow our business. So that'll come up in another module. Now, what I want you to do is, after you get that notice to creditors, choose a few case files to go ahead and pull at the courthouse so that you can familiarize yourself with what's in that case file. There's going to be a number of things that are in there, like an application to probate the will, an application to administer the estate. Now, that's the person who's going to be the personal representative. You're going to find letters of authority. This is what gives the person the right to sign on behalf of the estate. Last will and testamentary, if there is one. Appraiser's assignment. So they're going to assign an appraiser to decide what that property might be worth. A waiver of notice to heirs. Now, basically, they have to sign this waiver. All the heirs have to sign a waiver basically saying that they don't need to be notified. They already know this is in probate. So you'll see a number of the family signatures on the heirs' signatures on some of the paperwork releasing their obligation to be notified. They already know about it. You'll also typically find some sort of fiduciary acceptance letter. The reason being the fiduciary is actually, or the PR is legally responsible to act in the best interest of the estate. If they don't, they can actually be held accountable legally for not acting in the best interest of the estate. So this is a really big deal when somebody becomes a personal representative for the estate. Now, sometimes you're going to see the same thing called by a different name because of your particular area. For instance, an application to probate the will can also be called a petition to probate the will. The big thing is that you actually realize that the information you need is in these probate case files. It doesn't really matter what they call them. Also, sometimes documents are actually combined. So, for example, the application to probate might actually be combined with an application to administer the estate. So, again, it doesn't matter what they call it. It's finding the information that you need in order to be able to effectively market or advertise to these probates. So what you're going to find is that once you learn how case files are assigned, you can oftentimes predict in the sequence what property, or I should say what case files will come next. So oftentimes you're going to see case files with 2013, you'll have something like EST or PR or P, which means probate or estate, and then some numbers that will actually be the case files. So 2013, you'll usually find the date in there somewhere. It's not going to look exactly like this because each of our areas are going to assign case file numbers maybe a little bit differently. Sometimes there are no letters. Sometimes there's no date. It really just depends on your particular area. And then it will have the person, the decedent's name, the person who passed away, and then a case file date. So these are sequenced. This is all 2013, all EST, and then also they go 67, 68, 69, 70. So right in order by sequence number. Sometimes it's by category. So 2013 EST 02783, you notice then it skips to 795. Well, that's because in between 783 and 795, there's actually probably a 2013 GU 02784. And then 2013 CON 02785. There's other types of case files in between just the estates. So you need to be aware that it could be done sequentially or it could be actually done by category. Now, we're specifically interested in two subcategories of our estate cases in probate. We're looking for full administration with will. This is also called testate. When somebody dies with a will, it's called testate. Or full administration without will. This is also known when you don't have a will, it's called intestate. So what the key piece there is full administration, because that means we have a decision maker. It's a lot more challenging if you don't have it, you have no administration, because there's no person to make the decision on what's going to happen with the property. So keep that in mind. Full administration is the key, whether they have a will or they don't have a will. Now, what you need to do is you need to qualify the leads. You need to look for open cases only. Now, the key here is actually for you to find not the ones that are in the newspaper. So the newspaper was your gate key. That was the one that you went in and found. What you actually want to do is start requesting more recently filed case files, more recent than the newspaper. Basically, once you figure out the case filing system, you start going forward in time, and now you start getting more case files that nobody knows about. And this is how you get to the ones that nobody else knows about. So when we go back, let's just go back for a moment here to our case file sequence. What I'm going to do, if this is my case file and it's all sequenced in order by number, I'm going to actually start requesting 2013 EST 004-600. I'm going to go forward before it ever hits the newspaper and start pulling those case files that are most recently filed. Now, if it's in order by category, I may go ahead and request 2013 EST 004985, and there's nothing there. So I'm just going to have to keep going forward until I hit another estate case. So the key there, the key to working probate and getting ahead of your competition is actually to go ahead and request files that are not yet in the newspaper. So keep that in mind. That's probably the most important piece that you're going to take away from this particular process. Now, what you want to do is look for open cases only. And when you open up that case file worksheet, you're going to see an asset sheet. Now, there's a few areas where the asset sheet is actually closed or not available to the public, and I'll discuss what to do about that in just a little bit. But in most areas, you're going to look at an asset sheet, and it's going to actually say real property and a dollar amount. It'll say cash on hand or cash in bank accounts, and it'll have a dollar amount. Rents, how much are they receiving? So in those cases, what you're looking for is something that has real property and a dollar amount. It's not going to tell you where the properties are located. It's not going to tell you how many properties. It'll just say real property, $320,000. I don't know if that's one property. I don't know if it's 3 properties. Once I see that there is real property, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to the application to probate the will or the application to administer the estate, and I'm going to get the following pieces for my records. I need the decedent's name and address. I'm going to get the PR, personal representative's name, address, and phone number. The attorney's name and address. What date it was filed, when the person passed away, that's the other thing I want to get, is when did the person pass away, and also the case number. So I'm going to get all these key pieces for the probate in order to be able to then go ahead and market to these individuals. Now, once I have their name, the decedent's name, now what I want to do is I want to verify ownership. Name and address, excuse me. Once I have their name and address, now I want to verify ownership. Now you go to that auditor's office. Now you go to Netro Online. So remember, I want to show you, we've talked about it in other classes, but let's go and show you again on Netro Online how I can actually go online and locate my particular area's county auditor's office. So I go to Public Records Online. I pick my state, and then I go to my county, and it will take me to my auditor site. So I go to Data Online, and now I can actually go ahead and search that person's information. Now keep in mind, when the decedent gives you the domicile's address, when they give you that place where they were the domicile, where they were living when they passed away, that might not be the property that they own. It actually could be a nursing home. A lot of times it is a nursing home. It could be one of their children's homes. But it doesn't mean that they actually don't have property, because remember, the asset sheet said that they have real property. So what I do is I go online and I verify ownership. I go ahead and I put in that property address where the person who passed away was living and see, do they own it? Now, if they're not the owner, or if they own it with a person who is considered a surviving spouse, I do not mail a postcard or a letter. So I only mail to somebody who they are the only person on title and that's not being transferred to a surviving spouse. So if they're not the owner, one of the things that I often do was I'll search by owner name to see what else they might own. If you can't find it at your auditor's site, you could always try the recorder's site, because on the recorder's site, sometimes you can search by name to see what else somebody has, what other properties the person might have deeded in their name. So you could also do it by name at the recorder's office or the auditor's office to find out what else this person might own. Now, you can also actually have situations where you'll see as you go through the record that one of the children is actually living in the house where the parent owned the property. And the parent passed away, and you'll see that one of the children's addresses is listed as that parent's address. I would still go ahead and mail to those individuals, because what ends up happening is sometimes the person will actually be living with them, but they can't afford to keep the house. Part of the reason they're living with their parents still is because they're maybe not the most successful in life and not able to support themselves. So I've had many situations come up where the PR says, you know, yeah, my sister's living there, but she can't afford to keep the house, so we're going to have to go ahead and sell it, and she's going to have to move out. So as long as my person who passes away is the only person on title, or if it's owned by one of the children, but that child has a different address, you know, maybe my grandma passes away, but I'm actually on title with her, but yet I have my own house, I'm still going to want to liquidate her house. We just happen to put my name on title just to make it easier. So in that situation, I'd also maybe go ahead and mail. The only time I would not mail is that if I have a surviving spouse who is on title, or a child who's on title and they live at that property. They list that property in the probate case as their place of address, or their place of where they live. I don't know why it's not coming out right, but the place where they live. So that's what you want to go ahead and look for in these case files. Now the key is really going to be that you need to go ahead and request those case files going forward past when they're in the newspaper. So I'm looking for something that was most recently filed yesterday, if at all possible. And I'm going to have to go do that a little at a time and request that from my county courthouse. Now, in some areas, there's going to be potential for you to be able to actually do this online. And to show you very quickly, if I go to courtreference.com, and I go to my particular area. Now, it tells me all about the Ohio court system, but in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see Find Court Records by County. So I'm going to go ahead into my particular county that I want to search, which is Franklin. And what it'll actually tell me is it'll give me the different court systems. Now, of course, we already know that in Ohio, the probates are actually handled at the Court of Common Pleas. So you see we have the Domestic Relations and Juvenile Division, we have the General Division, and then we have, oh look, the Probate Division. What you can do is go to Online Resources, and it'll say Search Case Records. So here it says Search Franklin County Court of Common Pleas, or search their Probate Case Records Division, Probate Division. So now I actually get to an area where I can actually go ahead and I can start searching actually for properties online. It is not the same in every area. As I go back to my different areas, you may find that in your area it's actually not available. So if I go into, actually let's go to a different state. And this is why I showed you that court reference, is it can actually help you very quickly determine if you're going to be able to search online or if you're going to have to go down to your actual court records. So if I go to California here, it'll actually give me some information on these different areas, on the California court records. And what happens here is, in this particular area, it's very difficult. You're not often able to get information off of these different areas. So I'm going to go into San Diego County, let's say. And what I learn as I go to, let's see, I believe it's going to be handled at the Superior Courts in California. So I'm going to go into my online resources for this particular area and search case records. Now, I can search case records, but what ends up happening in California is I have to pay. And I actually have to pay quite a bit in order to be able to actually get information sometimes on some of these case records. So it makes more sense for me to actually go down to the courthouse perhaps in San Diego, because it's too expensive for me to be able to obtain this information from my court records if it's available. So if I just search, let's say, a common name like Smith, and I'm probably looking for probate, I'm going to say unknown and search them all, and I'm looking for the petitioner. What ends up happening is I'm going to see that there's probably a number of cases that actually pop up, but when I go to put in and go into this particular case, I actually don't really get a whole lot of information. The only thing that I really get is the file location. So now I know where to go to be able to actually find this particular probate case. So it doesn't necessarily help me a whole lot to go online in this particular area, because I don't get very much information at all. So that's where courtreference.com is very, very helpful, because it can actually explain or help me find out whether or not there's going to be case records that are available online, or if it's not possible to actually get those case records. Again, go into yet another type of area. Let's go to, let's see here, New Jersey. We'll go into, let's see, where is it handled at? We have to scroll down and find out where these case files are handled. So we scroll down to the bottom and we find out they're handled at the surrogate courts. Surrogates court. So when I go to search in the New Jersey area, let's go to Essex County. And I'm going to go find the surrogate's office, online resources. And what I find out is, see how in the New Jersey area, there's actually no option to search case records online. So that tells me in this particular area, it's just not possible for me to do it online. I'm going to have to actually go down to my area's courthouse and actually be able to pull those records. So that's really important for you to understand that you might be able to do this online. However, in most cases, you're going to have to start by going to your particular area's courthouse, familiarize yourself with what's typically in a probate case, and then be able to figure out if you can streamline the process online or if it's just not possible. That courtreference.com is going to streamline it for you a lot faster. So what you need to do in order to take action and start to gain access to these probate leads, which I have to tell you, it's like fishing out of a barrel with a net. There could not be anything easier, because you think about it, when you have a probate, you have a property that is not something that the PR, the personal representative, or the heirs worked hard to get. The person who worked hard to get to that property has already passed away. So gifted income has a different value than income that you work really hard for. And so the family is a lot more willing to let it go at a discount. They typically have equity in the property, which means that it's going to be a lot easier for you to get it at that discounted price because you don't have a mortgage dictating how much you can pay for the property. They're also very often cosmetically distressed properties that generally have, they're well taken care of, they're just outdated. So they make great little rehabs for investors. And the great thing is, it's really easy to assign them because the court systems don't care if we put and/or assigns on the contract. One of the things we run into with foreclosures is that they don't let us put and/or assigns on the contract, which makes it harder for us to be able to go ahead and actually wholesale it without doing a double close, which is a lot more risky. So it's very easy to assign these contracts. The courts could care less if you do it. And it's easy to get them under contract because it's kind of unwanted property. Nobody wants to deal with it. So great source of highly motivated sellers to get rid of these properties. You know, we're always looking for that higher than normal motivated seller, and this is exactly a great place to find those motivated sellers. So what you want to do is you want to get a legal newspaper and find those probate ads, because that's going to be your gate key to be able to get into the courthouse to look at those case files. Then what you're going to do is locate that probate office where those court records can be accessed. You can use courtreference.com as a way to be able to figure that out. Now what you want to do is start pulling opportunities and then send advertising, as we're going to describe in the advertising module. So that's going to be one of the things you want to listen to next, is how do I put my advertising together to get these probates to start calling me? They're going to be a great source for your wholesale deals. You don't want to miss doing this. Yes, it's going to be a little bit of effort, but if you go through that little bit of effort, you're going to get some fantastic deals for yourself. The best part is you don't have to necessarily wholesale them. You can keep the best properties for yourself and then go ahead and sell off or wholesale the things that don't meet your criteria. So we'll see you soon for the advertising module. That's going to be the next piece that you need to go forward, and have happy hunting.